we said, right, that the Ten Commandments are written two places, two times, right? Here's the first time. Here's the event, and it's written the first time. And then, right, we have in a book of Dvarim, before Moshe passes away, it's written the second time, right? So, I told you there are a few things that it's slight different, right? We spoke about that. Okay, so on page 411, guys, right? So when it says here about Shabbat, it says to remember the Shabbat, right? And in a second time, when it says, it's talking about the second times, it says to guard the Shabbat. So the very basic, remember, right? I told you to remember the Shabbat is talking about the positive things to do for the Shabbat, to honor and respect the Shabbat. That's how you remember the Shabbat. We spoke about that people used to shop during the week and they used to find something nice. They say this will be for Shabbat. So you're remembering Shabbat all week, right? We say the Psalm of the day. We say today is Sunday to Shabbat, right? Because we're looking towards Shabbat. So that's the idea of remembering the Shabbat. Okay, so the two go together. This is the positive things to do, to remember, right? When you'll remember, you meaning you'll mention that Shabbat is different. You'll sanctify the Shabbat by the positive things to do. And to guard the Shabbat means the melachot, the things that we should do, we should not do on Shabbat. Okay. I mentioned to you also, remember, that over here we say why to keep Shabbat, because God created the world in 6 days, right? Like you see in front of you, 4:11, right? Okay, verse 11. Page 411, verse 11, right? Because God created the world in 6 days, right? And he rested on the seventh day. In a second time, right, it's written a different reason, because we're slaves in Egypt, right? So what's the explanation? So the Nachmani says that actually it's one idea. The idea of keeping Shabbat is showing that we believe there is a creator, there is 6 days of work, and Shabbat is special, right? That's really the idea of Shabbat. That's the whole idea of keeping Shabbat. Now, if you have doubts about it, remember what happened in Egypt. What happened in Egypt? You're in slavery. You were there for 210 years. Who got you out of there, right? And the 10 plagues that happened. So the power of God taking out the Jews from Egypt is equal to creation. Okay, you hear the idea? The power, right, of taking God, right, the Jews out of Egypt is equal to creation. So that will remind you to the Creator, and I'll remind you to, that's why you should keep Shabbat. Okay? That's what we said yesterday. Now, another insight to this, guys, is the Malbim says a very interesting idea. One of the great commentaries, the Malbim, asks the following. Okay, so, right, so let's go with the idea like it says here. So why we don't work on Shabbat? Why we rest on Shabbat? Why we sanctify the Shabbat? Because what?
God rested on the seventh day.
God rested on the seventh day. And that will be what? A sign, right, of declaring that is a creator, right? When I'm keeping Shabbat, resting and not working on Shabbat, right, that's declaring that I believe in the creator. Yeah? Okay, so the Malbim is asking like this. But we taking the day that the creator rested, right? So how by not working on Shabbat and resting on Shabbat, that's testimony that is a creator. You're taking the day that nothing was created. It almost makes sense according to this question, right? Maybe we should do something in the 6 days. Every day, right? We have the verses that teach us what happened every day. So we're taking the day that nothing happened, no creation, and we rest on it, and that is testimony that is a creator. Oops. You hear the problem? Very simple, actually, an obvious question. It's a nice question. Once he asks that, actually you say, well, why I didn't ask that question? No?
I'm sorry.
You're taking
I don't, for some reason, I didn't catch it.
When you're keeping Shabbat, right? it says here the reason is because that God created the world in 6 days and he rested on the seventh day. So when you keep in Shabbat, it's testimony that is a creator. You know that on Kiddush Friday night, in the first part, it says to stand. You know why? Because it's like giving over testimony. You're a witnesser and you're giving over testimony that God created the world in 6 days and he rested on the seventh day. So when somebody's keeping Shabbat, it's like witnesses giving over testimony, declaring, I believe is a creator that created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh day. So the question is, why are you taking a day that nothing happened?
You're using a day that nothing happened to testify that there's a creation.
Yeah,
Take a day that heaven was created, the boundaries of dry land and water, the species, the animals, the trees, the bushes. Look how many things were created. So maybe we should pick a different day.
It's human nature to want to create things, especially create things for enjoyment. That's in fact why we're even asking this question. Shouldn't the day of creation be bigger than the day of no creation? But it's
Correct.
a bigger test for us to have a day where we don't create.
Why?
We don't make anything, we don't do any work. Because if we put active creation so ahead, then it would seem that a day off from that would be more difficult for us. It's more of a test, and that's something that we should revere.
Okay, so again, you're saying it's a bigger test for us not to work or not to that, okay.
Yeah.
But how that's showing that there's a creator?
Showing that it's a creator?
Yeah.
Because
We get that the idea is of us resting and not working is to show that this day is different. That's clear. We're not arguing on that. We're not asking. That's clear. That's the point of the idea, right? To show that this day is different. But we have the problem with the day. You're choosing a day to rest and not to work, a day where really was no creation. So it's like almost saying, we're missing the main idea. You want to show there's a creator. You want to show that he created 6 days and he rested on the seventh day. So therefore we rest on Shabbat, because he didn't work on Shabbat. Right? Nothing happened then. Okay? So that's the question of the Malbim, right? So the Malbim says the following answer, guys, a very interesting idea, and you'll see, I think, everything in a different perspective. You see, what would be the main parts of a car? A car, a machine that works, drives. What would be? Engine, yeah. If you don't have engine, well, basically it's a non-starter, yeah. What Sam, you said? The brakes. Why the brakes?
Because otherwise you're just going, and it's going to be dangerous.
Otherwise, you don't have control. Guys, the idea, just for right, the idea is control. I just brought this to use it in our practical life. Control. A good driver, even if he's speeding, but he's controlling, so he's still a good driver. A bad driver means that he loses control. Okay? So the idea is like this, guys. You see, God created the world in 6 days. What happened Friday sunset? Creation stopped. Now you should ask, how did creation stop? Why things are not being created more? All what we have today is coming from the sources that God created then. Nothing new under the sun. We just find things and learn how to use them, right? But creation stopped. So you should ask, how did creation stop? What's the answer? Who stopped it? God. So when creation stopped, what that means? That somebody is controlling creation. So that's the idea. The idea is like this. It was 6 days of creation. The Torah teaches us each day was something created. And then it stopped. Oh, what's going on here? Who stopped it? Well, right? You get the email, right? Hashem stopped it. That shows you that is somebody controlling it. And that's why it's testimony. Okay? That's what we're saying, that when we're keeping Shabbat, we're showing that this day is different because creation stopped and it didn't continue. And just to finish this, guys, so in the one hand, creation stopped. Nothing new was created on Saturday, right? Nothing new. God, so to speak, rested, stopped creation. But the world is continuing to go, right? So that's the idea of Shabbat, that when we're keeping Shabbat, I'm not working, right? The rabbis give me categories of what's considered work. I sanctify the Shabbat, I bless the Shabbat, right? I do special things for Shabbat, and that is the testimony that I'm saying, yeah, this day is different. Creation was stopped in this day. This day is holy or different, right? And that's why God wants us to rest, so to speak, in the same day that He rested and nothing was created. Okay? So basically the idea is showing control. Creation stopped, that shows you control. And that's why the day we celebrate this day, we sanctify this day. No creation, yeah, that day is special. Somebody stopped creation. Okay, so I think this gives you a different, a new perspective on the whole idea. Now you understand, wow, yeah, Shabbos is special because that is testimony for the Creator, right? Even though, if people ask you, nothing was created, but that's the whole idea. Nothing was created, somebody stopped creation. And the world is continuing to go. We say here in verse 11, in the same verse, right? God blessed the Shabbat and He sanctified the Shabbat. So Rashi brings an interesting idea. He blessed the Shabbat and He sanctified the Shabbat. Rashi says the following. Where did God bless the Shabbat? So Rashi says with the manna, right? Are you all familiar when the Jewish people were in the desert? So one of the great miracles that Jewish people experienced at the time, right? They didn't have to go worried about breakfast, lunch, and supper, right? They had this manna coming down. That's a topic on its own, that unbelievable manna that was coming down. According to some opinions, right, to the righteous, they used to come close. To the people that are wicked, they used to come far. They used to had to walk a little bit more. So the righteous was ready, and whatever they had in mind, what kind of a flavor it should be, that's what they had. But the wicked one had to work for it to improve it. So anyways, the manna was one of the great experience of Jewish people in the desert. Now, they were told like this, how much each one is allowed to collect?
For each day.
So only for the day, according to the people, the members of your house. The amount is a omer, is a certain amount, right? You had to go out to the field, collect that amount for the day, right? Are you allowed to leave leftovers for tomorrow? No. It says don't leave leftovers for tomorrow. That's actually, the idea is like this. You see that God wanted that they should live, right, dependent by Him, constantly dependent by Him. So don't leave manna for tomorrow. You'll have tomorrow will come again a new manna, a new delivery, right? Okay, now, right, so every day they were collected only for that day according to the members of the house, and not to leave leftovers for tomorrow, right? If actually somebody did leave and there were wicked people that left, it went spoiled, it went rotten, or in the morning they saw that it went bad. Okay? So this is, right, during the weekday, Sunday till Friday. Okay? What happens on Shabbat? Did we have manna on Shabbat? Just 1 minute.
Yeah, they got 2 portions.
Okay? So Rashi says, so they got a double portion before Shabbat. So Rashi says over here, I bless the Shabbat by getting, right? I bless the Shabbat that you get a double portion on Friday for Shabbat, right? So on Friday, I mentioned to you once, right, guys? On Shabbat, you make the blessing on the bread and 2 chalot. Why you do the blessings on 2 chalot?
Because we had 2 manna.
To remember this idea that on Friday, they got a double portion of the manna, okay? So now, guys, you ready? So Rashi says like this, Shabbat is blessed what? By getting 2 portions on Friday already. And God sanctified the Shabbat that no manna falls on Shabbat. So Rashi is referring very specific that Shabbat was blessed and sanctified for the manna. Okay? Blessed for a double portion on Friday. You're getting your portion already on Friday for Shabbat. And sanctify meaning it doesn't fall on Shabbat. So one of the great commentators says, okay, this is a big miracle, you know, this whole idea that a double portion falls on Friday and no manna falls on Shabbos, right? Great miracle, and it's a big idea. But hold on, you know, this happened only 40 years. So when God is saying in the 10 Commandments, you know, I bless the Shabbat and I sanctify the Shabbat, is referring only to those 40 years of the manna? You hear the problem, right? So Rashi is going very specific, right? That this is referring to the manna. So he's asking, what do you mean? The manna is only 40 years. Right? So it's a great idea. We see the great message. The Shabbat is special. We get a double portion on Friday. It doesn't fall on Shabbat, but it's only 40 years. So he says the following, guys. And this is also very interesting, very practical for our life. You see, Shabbat, guys, is very essential for Jewish people. You know that the Chofetz Chaim, you heard about this Rabbi Chofetz Chaim in Europe? He passed away 70 years ago. He said that people that, even that not necessarily they're observing all mitzvah, right? But if they keep Shabbat, that's a sign that they're still connected. So even though, maybe they're not praying and maybe they're not keeping kosher and maybe doing that, but if they are keeping Shabbat, that's a good sign that they're still connected. Why? He said that the idea is like this. He said, you have sometimes in a town, in a city, let's say it was a shop of shoes, right? And it closed down. But they kept the sign up, right? There's a big sign, right? Jack's shop shoes shop, right? Right? So people will still call it, right? Jack's shoe shops, right? Even though he closed. Why? Because the sign is still there, right? So people still call it the shop of the shoes because it's still there, right? What happens if they take off the sign? That's it, history, right? No more. We won't call it anymore the shop of the shoes. That's it. He said when a Jew is keeping Shabbat, he's putting up a sign. He's declaring, I believe in the Creator that created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh day, and that's why I'm keeping Shabbat. So he said that's a beautiful idea of the Chafetz Chaim, that by keeping Shabbat, right, it's declaration, testimony, right, for the Creator. That's why even though if it's far away for other things, but Shabbat makes him connected, and so to speak, even though the shop closed down, but the sign is still up. Sorry? That's right.
What does that mean?
Sign forever. It says that Shabbat is a sign between Jewish people and God, that God created the world for 6 days and rested on Shabbat. Oti Lolam, that's right. God blessed the Shabbat and sanctified the Shabbat, right? Because, right, no manna and you get a double portion. Well, that was only for 40 years. So one of the commentary points out, and he says the following, and it's based also on the prophet of Yirmiyah. And he says the idea is like this. You see, the manna, really, the Jewish people in the desert have no concerns of earning money, of livelihood. They have freedom of that, right? That's why it says that the Torah is given to that generation, that they had no concerns, no obligations. They had totally freedom, and they were able to focus on the Torah that is given to them. So the manna is also a message, right, to the Jewish people to say that people will say, how could I close the shop on Shabbat? I'll lose clients, right? So what's the answer?
You get a double portion.
God will give you a double portion on Friday for Shabbat. So the manna is it's not only the food, right? Manna is symbolizing the livelihood of of the Jewish people at that time. They had no concerns for livelihood, right? They didn't have to worry for parnasah, right? Everything is being taken care of, right? We're all good. So that's the idea. So when people come and ask, how can I close? Well, if God told you so he'll find enough ways to give you the money that you should earn this year during the week without to work on Shabbat. Right? If God decided that this guy will make $100,000 this year, right? So he'll find enough ways to give it to him without working on Shabbat. That's the message. And I just want to show you, if you open here, they're told to take the manna and to put it in a jar and to hold it on to show it to generations to come, to remember the miracle of the manna. Okay? Let me show you the verse a minute. So verse 32. Who wants to read the verse 32? Sam, go for it.
Moses said, this is the thing that Hashem has commanded. The full owner of it shall be a safekeeping for your generations, so that they will see the food with which I fed you in the wilderness when I took you out of Egypt. Moses said to Aaron, take one jar and put a full omer of manna into it, place it before Hashem for a safekeeping for your generations. So Shem had commanded Moses, Aaron placed it before the ark of testimony for safekeeping. The children of Israel ate the manna for 40 years until their arrival in an inhabited land. They ate the manna until their arrival at the border of the land of Canaan.
Okay. So you see that told, you see, this is one of the interesting things, you see, this is one of the key things that are difference between Judaism and other religions. The miracles that are done here are done in public, right? Nothing private, right? Feeding millions of people in the desert for 40 years, right? I don't think other religions come something close to this, right? You could claim what you want, you saw, you didn't see, but in the end of the day, somebody is hungry and he wants to eat. So what they ate in the desert, right? And all miracles, Matan Torah, right? Public. Manna, right? For millions of people, public for 40 years. So this is just a side note to remember that the great miracles that happened in the desert were massive miracles that were done in front of the public, not only in front of individuals. Okay, so you see what he's told, take a jar with the manna and put it, right? Save it for generations to come. The prophet Yirmiyah says, if you look in chapter 2, verse 31, it says the following, guys, that Yirmiyah is complaining, let me just explain. So they kept this jar, and it went with them into Israel. It traveled with them into Israel, and it was there for the first temple. So they had this jar, they kept it for close to 900 years, okay? 480 years till they first built the first temple. From Jewish people, from the time that they came into the first temple is 480 years. That's when King Shlomo finished to build the first temple, okay? 480 years from the Exodus of Egypt, and the first temple stand for 410 years. So you're getting, right? So it's 900 years that jar was there. So the prophet Yirmiyah says to the Jewish people, he was complaining, they're not studying Torah. You're not doing what you're not studying Torah. So they're saying, well, we got to work, we got to plow, we got to take care of our business, right? The factories, right? We got to work. So he took out the jar of the manna and he showed them, why are you so concerned, right? Look, whoever fed Jewish people 40 years in the desert will feed you as well. Now, and this is a big lesson, guys. Do we have to go to work? Do we have to earn money? Yes. But the idea is keep the right balance. Remember that what you're doing is, when God cursed Adam, right? And in creation, right? And he said to him, because of the sin, that you'll have to sweat for your bread, right? That means that you'll have to sweat for your livelihood, right? But remember, it has to be what's the main part, right? And what's the first in priority? What's the main thing and what's the second thing, right? The idea is like this. Remember that even you do have to go and obviously to take care of the bills, right? But remember, Torah is number one. And that's what he was complaining. You forget that if you'll work for certain hours and still go and study Torah, God will help you out. Okay? The concept is, in Hebrew, it's called hishtadlut. You got to try, right? We live now. There's no manna falling from heaven, right? So I got to go to work and pay the bills, right? But, right? Remember, the idea is the balance. What's first and what's second? Okay? So that's the answer. So let's go back. So he's saying over here, when we said God bless the Shabbat and sanctify the Shabbat, is with the manna, because that will remind you that somebody fed the Jews, somebody fed the whole nation, somebody fed the whole nation for 40 years, and he'll take also care of your livelihood. Don't worry about that. There was a guy over here, back in the probably is in the, you're talking about in the 50s, Jews that were coming from Europe, right? It was a big challenge. Go find a job that you cannot work on Shabbat, right? Basically, if you ask not to work on Shabbat, you're fired, right? By the way, automatically you're fired, right? So it was a big challenge, right? There's a beautiful book, All for the Boss. You heard about that? It was a rabbi, Rabbi Yosef Yaakov Herman, that was living in those years in America, and he was showing that there were Jews fully keeping Shabbat, because it was a big challenge, right? That you won't have a livelihood, right? So there were those that really were able to keep it, right? But it was a big challenge. It wasn't easy. There were stories that even the fathers were older and they didn't go to work, and the sons are the ones that were going to work. So there are even stories that the father used to go out from shul to wake up the son to go to work on Shabbat, because they held that at that time, some of them held that as pikuach nefesh. I won't have a livelihood. I won't have food, right? So it was a challenge, right? But people, right? There were people that went till the end, and it worked out with the miracle of Shem. There was a fellow here that came to visit one summer, and he says that his grandfather is one of those Jews that immigrate from Europe to America, and obviously he couldn't find a job, right? Like I told you, you don't work on Saturday, it just doesn't exist, right? It's like not working on Monday. So what he used to do, he used to go to, in a neighborhood in Manhattan, he used to pick up the dry cleaning. You're talking back years ago. He used a service. He used to pick up the dry cleaning for the rich families and take it to the dry cleaning and bring it back, right? So he used to come one day, pick it up, and then whatever, 2-3 days later, give it back. So one day he picks up a few suits of a very rich man, and he finds a bill in one of the pockets. So he comes, knocks on the door, gives him back the bill, and he says to him, this is one of your pockets of your jackets that you gave for the dry cleaning, right? Here's the bill. So he calls him in, and he said, I see that you're very honest, and you're a man that has principles, right? Come to my office, I want to give you a job. And he came to the office, and he became, he named, it was like one of the big companies, I forget, but true story, right, from his grandfather, right? So this guy did not give up. He was willing to, get paid less. You see what kind of a job he was doing, collecting dry cleaning service, right? But through that, Hashem helped him out. So you never know, right? The idea is like this. One thing we for sure could say, guys, you won't lose by not working on Shabbat. And actually, the other way around. Like you say that God blessed the Shabbat and sanctified the Shabbat will give you a blessing for the whole week. We say, give me please the Siddur a minute. Because if you really think about it, right, it's like I told you, right, if God decided that this amount you'll make this year, right, so he'll find enough ways of giving you that amount without working on Shabbat. So in the Lecha Dodi, guys, right, it says, let's go out to greet the Shabbat, because Shabbat is the source of the blessing, right? Are you familiar with that? Right? So if you want to see, right, it says in the second piece, right? Let's go greet the Shabbat, because Shabbat is the source of the blessing. What that means, that's what we're reading now, that God blessed the Shabbat and sanctified the Shabbat, meaning keeping Shabbat, right, is the source of blessing for the whole week to come. Okay? So, right, that's what we truly believe. And why? Because it's crucial and essential, like I told you, that Shabbat is testimony that is a creator. And if you're testifying and keeping the Shabbat in a proper way, God will bless you and give you back much more. There's also a statement in the Talmud that says like this: more than the Jewish people guard the Shabbat guard the Jewish people. You hear the idea, right? So we're thinking we're keeping Shabbat, right. But the truth is, it's all for our sake. It's all for our good. So when we keeping Shabbat, right, is guarding us. It's also a concept that says that if all Jews will keep 2 Shabbatot, who will arrive? Mashiach. The real one. The Chafetz Chaim said, just to make it more clear, that you won't lose by, right, closing your shop on Shabbat. Another beautiful idea of the Chafetz Chaim. So let's take this huge cup of Shlomo. right? Let's say this is a barrel of wine, right? And this big barrel could hold 30 gallons, okay? Big barrel, right? Back in the day, by the way, that's what it was done. People used to buy barrels of wine, put it in a storage place, and from time to time, they go to the storage place and fill up a jar with wine, right? They didn't buy bottles. They used to buy barrels, keep it in a storage place, and go, right, every Shabbat or whatever, every nice meal you have, you go down to the storage place and fill up your bottle. So how much this barrel could hold? 30 gallons, yeah? What happens if somebody will come and say, you know what, it's not enough 30 gallons. You know what I'll do? I'll install another top. So he goes and he drills a hole and he's making here another top. Is he gaining something?
No.
Aha, you hear the idea?
Yep, Shabbat is...
Right, Tanner? You hear the idea? You have one top usually, right? So they'll come this guy, right, to take out wine. So come this guy and says, I want more wine. So what he does, drills a hole, right, to take out more wine, right? And he installs another top. He says, somebody, that's the idea. God created the world that you should work 6 days and rest on the seventh day. You don't have to open your shop on Shabbat. If you are concerned and you're going and opening the Shabbat to make more money, that's exactly like the guy that's drilling another hole. You're not gaining anything. You hear? Because the amount is decided. We believe that God decided how much money every person will make for the year, right? That's one of the things that it's, right? God decides. And therefore, you're not going to gain any more wine, right? It's a fixed amount that is there. So it's just like drilling another hole in a barrel, which doesn't make sense, right? Okay, guys. Have a wonderful day.